It's Tuesday, the 6th of February. Thanks for clicking on to Vogan's European Outlook. We have got a very interesting situation developing. It looks as if some of the models in certainly the short term, is actually pulling the cold back north once again. And I see quite a few folks jumping on the gun now and saying that we're seeing the demise of the cold potential. And to an extent, it looks to be the case. However, I want to look at the big picture and I want to try and explain a couple of interesting things that I think is important to take into consideration. Now, the MJO rotating in a very amplified way through phases 4 and 5 has really done a work on the northern hemispheric pattern. It has built up a tremendous amount of warmth within the mid latitudes of the northern hemisphere. So you can see here the pronounced nature. The further away the green line is from the center circle here of the MJO chart here, that is a stronger influence from tropical forcing northwards towards the pole. And this is essentially where we stand for the first 6 days of February in terms of the 2 meter temperature anomaly. So this is looking right down over the pole, and you can see the level of warmth that we have at the surface and in the upper levels of the mid-latitude pattern. Now you can see here the amount of warmth over Europe, over Eurasia in a sense, and look at the amount of warmth, that bullseye of blowtorch warm across the center of North America here. Only Alaska and Florida, California is below average for the first 6 days of the month. But you can see the amount of warmth that we have within the northern hemisphere. So in essence, we have been stuck in phase 7 for some time now. And you can see, if we look at the latest chart here of the GFS ensemble, we've went through the phases of 4 and 5 all the way back to the mid portions of January, and we're now slowly rotating, almost kind of bouncing around between 7 and 8. Notice it's out of the inner circle, so that means that it's an amplified phase 7, 8 of the MJO. What does that correlate to? If we look then at this chart here, this represents what these phases mean in terms of the Magellan oscillation versus what that forces, what that drives. And you can see here, phase 7 and phase 8 promotes northerly blocking, Greenland high pressure, cold for the UK winter. If you've looked at the models in recent days, you can see here that area of low pressure that moves in during the course of Thursday. We do have a snow threat, parts of Wales, England, Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland. I think it may be a borderline event down at low levels. We've got a small chance of seeing an accumulating snow down closer to sea level. We may see disruption above, say, 150 to 200 meters. We will have snow showers running in from the north across northern portions of the British Isles here. But there is a distinct pullback, and this is something that I strive to do here on markvoganweather.com and YouTube and the website, is being honest with you, not trying to wishcast, but I still stand by the ideas that I have. And I'm going to reinforce that in just a second here. Now, we do have interesting things going on within the stratosphere, and I'm going to show you this here. This is the polar winds here within the 60 degrees north of latitude. This is a terrific graphic. I believe it was Richard Trott that I was going to say Richard Trott produced it. I'm not entirely 100% sure, but you can see here, thanks to Richard Trott anyway for sending me the graphic nonetheless. But you can see here the weakening and strengthening of the mean zonal winds within the polar stratosphere here. You can see that we had a weakening during the mid to late autumn period here. Now, we did see the combination of the MJO and that possible weakening of the stratospheric vortex during the latter half of the autumn that then constituted the cold spell during the early portions of December. Then we've seen a ramp up, a strengthening. Now, that coincided with the phase 4 and 5 of the MJO here. Now, granted, there is a lag, and remember what I'm going to tell you here, there's that lag, and I think what's going to be interesting is we had a dip, a weakening of the polar vortex during the latter half of December. Now, we did see the coldest portion of the winter during the middle portions of January, and I think that was, along with the MJO phase 7, 8, and 1, we've seen the weakening of the stratospheric polar winds roughly 2 weeks before the cold spell during the month of January. Now, listen, I will hold my hands up if I'm wrong about this, but I still believe that this is a month that turns progressively colder with time. Now, you notice here within this graphic that the strongest weakening of the polar vortex and the mean zonal winds we did reverse briefly, as you can see here in the chart. That straight line right here at the zero represents the zero wind. So rather than it being a strong westerly, it actually went briefly easterly. But I think that the important take home about this is that it is the fact that we've seen the very strong weakening of the polar vortex during the month of January. And despite the fact that we had a tremendous level of warming taking place late January, the last 10 days of January, and the first 10 days of February, we have got a fight going on at the moment here, but it's going to take time. I think what happens is when you've got this deep positive Arctic oscillation, that means you've got low pressure and you've got all the cold air bottled up within the Arctic. Therefore, you've got stronger subtropical high pressure, and that is driving the warmth across North America and across Europe. When you've got a strong subtropical high versus a deep low over the Aleutians, over the North Pacific, that's pumping Pacific air across North America. We're seeing the mirror image of that over the Atlantic. We've got a strong subtropical high pressure system that's been driving record breaking warm temperatures across Europe, starting off Northwest Africa up through Spain, Portugal, France, the UK with 19.9 Celsius, enhanced by the Fern effect, of course, but nonetheless, it was the overall pattern that helped deliver that. We just had that localized enhancement of the Fern effect. What's taking place is when you've got that setup, deep Aleutian Icelandic trough, strong subtropical high pressure within the mid latitudes, lifting warmth northwards. You've got that reflection, very strong positive Arctic oscillation, positive North Atlantic oscillation. And I think the problem is that you've got the amount of warmth within the mid latitude pattern. It's going to take a little bit of time for the overall pattern to flip on its head, and I think it will happen based on the fact that we've got this MJO that's stuck in the phases of 7 and flirting with phases 8. It's not rotating back through 1, 2, 3, 4 and into 5. If it was, it's doing something different to what we've seen back in December and even back in January, where we've seen the full rotation through the cold phases into the warm phases. What I think is going to happen is the combination of that very strong weakening of the mean zonal winds and consequential weakening of the polar vortex, combined with the MJO relatively stuck in the cold phases of 7 and 8. I think eventually what's going to happen is the pattern will eventually turn on its head and it will turn progressively colder. Now, if you look at what the this is of, so this is the current situation, 2 meter temperature anomalies. You're saying to yourself, how are we going to get a colder than average February with this type of start to February? And I understand where you're coming from. This, folks, is the ECMWF control for the next 30-day period. And you notice here that we've got the United States cold, we've got Europe cold, we've also got the UK and Ireland below average. This is the period between the 5th of February and the 6th of March. Like I say, I'll hold my hand up if I am wrong and this does not happen. This is of the GFS extended. This is the ensemble for the next 30 days. And again, it's showing average, possibly slightly above average across the far south of the UK. Central and northern UK and Ireland is below average. Remember, this is a 30-day period. Now, interesting enough, that the GFS ensemble is actually showing a warmer United States, which is rather interesting here. It's showing a very, very warm North America in general. That's rather interesting to see. Now, this is the ECMWF ensembles for the Arctic Oscillation, or North Atlantic Oscillation. This is the Arctic Oscillation. You can see here that it is projected to go into the tank. Now, may I add here, this is the deepest February negative Arctic Oscillation. I believe it is the deepest, if it happens, since 2010. This is the North Atlantic Oscillation, and it's going firmly negative. Now, keep in mind that we've bottled the cold up within the Arctic for the last fortnight, even slightly before that. Modelling has a hard time. Modelling has a hard time sometimes seeing the level of cold that is available to the north of the pattern. And what I think is going to happen is we're going to see this pressing and pushing as warming takes place within the Arctic. Sometimes you actually see a warm up and a wiping out of the cold before the real deal comes in. And I think there's a real tug of war between a transition in pattern at the moment. We've got a tremendous amount of warmth, like I said, already within the mid latitude pattern. And it's going to take time to remove that level of warmth within the pattern, but I think it is coming. So if we look at the upper air pattern, this is the 500 millibar chart here, the anomalies. So this is the control run off the ECMWF, 7-day increments. This is the upcoming 7-day period, and you can see here still quite an active Atlantic jet running across the Atlantic and into the UK, Ireland, and Western Europe in general. Watch what happens. Keep in mind the MJO forcing versus the stratospheric warming that took place a fortnight ago. And you remember there is the lag of about 2 weeks. We'll play through the loop, and you notice here the heights starting to rise strongly, not only over the Arctic but also over Greenland and the North Atlantic. Then you're starting to force the trough into North America and into Europe here. If we then look at the same time frame, so that look at the difference. Look at the difference here compared to what we've got at the moment here. It all takes time, and sometimes you have to almost remove the incoming cold that's trying to push south with the warming. That warming then forces all the way up towards the Arctic region, and it turns the upper air pattern on its head. And you can see here the change in the ECMWF weeklies and the control run. If we look at the European version of this, and let's have a look and see what the temperature anomalies are at the surface for the same time frame. So this is the current situation. You can see the cooling taking place across the northern and central portions of the UK. Ireland is below average here. We'll play through the loop, and you can see here the turnaround taking place. And notice how it turns progressively colder. It turns brutal over Scandinavia again. So very warm at the moment. Only time will tell. I'm trying to explain to you the reasons why I think something's going to happen. I didn't score an 8 out of 10 for December. I didn't score an 8 out of 10 for January just for wish casting. I gave you my whole philosophy as to where I thought this winter was going. Remember what was said: warmer than average winter, warmer than average 90-day period. There would be cold spells, there would be warm spells. I think there has been an element of El Nino. The warm backdrop of the planet, ocean, land, atmosphere has been enhancing the level of warmth during those warm spells. And I think we are seeing the fight back of winter with this pattern. I think February, middle and latter half of February into the month of March, turns progressively colder. And just to throw this in for good measure, this is the 70 HPA temperature profile. Currently, you can see here the warming taking place. We've got the cold pool up towards the northern Ural Mountains here. If we play through to about a week from now at 70 HPA, we've got a renewed surge of warming. The reason why is because the models are showing the potential of another major stratospheric warming situation. This is all the way out 264 hours from now, and you've got a very, very strong surge of warming taking place. That may enhance the cold late month into early and mid-March. I don't think we are going to see spring early this year based on what I'm seeing. Stay tuned, like, share, and subscribe. See you again tomorrow with more. Bye for now.